right, I'm gonna get started. Let me make sure, am I recording? I am recording. You are being recorded. Good afternoon. I am Sarah Velasquez. I am the Communications Core Director for the KINBRE. If you have not heard from me yet, you will be hearing from me in the future for the rest of your lives since you have joined K-INBRE. If you're new here, welcome. If you're returning, we're happy to see you again. Today, our presentation will be by Dr. Wright. He is the PI for the KINBRE, and he is going to talk about the INBRE and some expectations for you for this summer and the rest of your participation in the program. And I am going to hand it off to you, Dr. Wright.
Well, good lunch to everyone. Hope everybody's having a great summer and you've had a chance to kind of get back into the laboratories. I see lots of faces that I recognize and lots of new faces. And what I'm going to do today is pretty much just ramble on for about 35 minutes just on topics that are on my mind. No, that's not true. What I thought I would do is introduce kind of this program called the INBRE program. What is it? Why is it? What are you participating in? But really kind of talk about some opportunities and really kind of lean towards some career discussions about career development and where you can go and opportunities that you might have above and beyond the summer experiences that you're having today. And what I hope everybody will take away from this is that we are here as resources for you as you continue on in your career. This is, for many of you, this might be the first opportunity to work in a research laboratory. Some of you, it might be your second or third or whatever opportunity, but there's a lot of opportunities ahead of you. And so I kind of want to talk a little bit about this and also encourage you to use us as a resource as you move forward in your career. We are here to help you in that regard. That's an important function of the INBRE program, is to really be a resource for students as they navigate this mess we call science. So I think, Sarah, you may have to give me permission to share. Oh, no, there it is. I see it. I'm going to share my screen. Hopefully you can see this. Can you see my screen okay? My slides look all right, Sarah?
Yes, they look great.
Positive feedback? Okay, thank you. All right, so I love Zoom because I don't oftentimes have to leave my basement, although today I'm in my office. The thing I don't like about Zoom is as soon as you start showing slides, you lose any of the small connection you have to people. So if at any point I freeze or something's not working, please let me know, and so I don't ramble on for 10 minutes and not know that. So I am Doug Wright. I am a professor at KU Medical Center. I am in my 24th year as a faculty member here. And I am serving in my 11th year as the Kansas INBRE principal investigator, which means that I'm the boss of the grant that we get from NIH to support this particular program. My lab is on the KU Medical campus. I am what people would call a neuroscientist, and I would call myself a translational neuroscientist, meaning that I have part of my lab does rodent research on biomedical disease, but we've also transitioned to do clinical research as well. We actively try and move a lot of the ideas that we have in the wet bench laboratory to clinical research. And so I spend about half of my time in clinical studies and half of the time managing mouse studies as well. So we try to really kind of move a lot of our ideas that'll to eventually help those in the hospital here. And so a lot of my training of my own students, whether they're PhD or MD PhD students, I've had many of both, really kind of look with an eye towards ideas that can be moved forward either to the bedside, but also with an idea towards perhaps maybe moving the ideas outside, protecting intellectual property, and then developing a way to move that idea to benefit society, whether it's a startup company or licensing or other things. So I will sort of make pitches to all of those as we move forward. What I'm going to talk to you today is a little bit about the program that you're involved in and why it's important, and some of the things that we feel will benefit you as you move forward. Okay, so what is this program? We are part of a larger program funded by the National Institutes of Health. So if you're not familiar with NIH, federal government has established an agency that has 27 different institutes, primarily located in Bethesda, Maryland, that are designed to help distribute money out to researchers across various places, including universities. And so we receive money from the National Institute of General Medical Sciences, or NIGMS. And one of the goals of the program that we're involved in, the Institutional Development Award Program, or IDEA program, as you'll hear me call it, is to support research in states that are in the lower half of NIH funding. So you can see the map below here. These pretty blue states are all states that are in the lower half of NIH funding. Much of the funding goes to the coastal states on either coast or to the big universities. And NIH recognized a number of years ago, nearly over 20 years ago, that there was a huge disparity in terms of where money was going. And so they have now programs designed to help increase funding within these states. And of course, Kansas is one of these states. We are one of these states for a couple of very important reasons. One, our population is lower than a lot of the states, and the number of large universities in our states is also limited compared to many other states. And so we are within this cohort of states that are eligible for NIH funding. And now I'll tell you a little bit about the programs that we've been able to develop here in Kansas. So there's now 4 programs that are recognized within the IDEA program. The KINBRE programs, there are 23 of these programs, one in each state. And so, of course, I'm the principal investigator of the Kansas KINBRE, but Nebraska has an KINBRE, South Dakota has an KINBRE, and so on and so forth. There's another program called KOBRE programs, and that's generally smaller programs that each large university can have 3 of these. And so we actually have 6 existing KOBRE programs within the state of Kansas right now. We have 1 KINBRE program. About 10 years ago, NIH really kind of tried to develop ways to help these states in terms of their clinical research in this. So they established the Clinical and Translational Research Program. There are now 11 of these across the country in the various IDEA states. We do not have a clinical and translational research grant because we have another type of similar grant from NIH called CTSA, the Clinical and Translational Science Award. So we are not eligible for that. So what this means is that we are averaging between $17 and $20 million that's coming from NIH to the state of Kansas to our particular program. That's a big chunk of money. That's more than any other sort of program from NIH. It's a substantial amount of money coming into the program. One thing that NIH has done finally that allows us to sort of see where we stand and see what's happening is they've established a dashboard within the NIGMS site. So you can go to that dashboard and you can search it and you can see the different types of grants that we're getting from this particular program, the amount of money every year, the contact information. So it's become a very nice resource. Although I just checked it a little while ago and they still have not added one of the KOBREs from Kansas State University. Kim Kirkpatrick's KOBRE is not on there. So I'll need to encourage them to add that as well. But it is a nice resource if you just kind of want to get a feel for, all right, what's happening and how do we compare to the other states? I think we're doing really well comparatively. So this is our program. We've been in existence since 2001. It's had a couple of different names, but we're now called the Kansas KINBRE program. We are required to have a particular theme for our program. And so many years ago, a lot of wise people decided to choose cell and developmental biology is our theme. And what that does is it allows us to focus on strengths within our state, but also to capture a lot of the research that's happening across the state. Cell biology is a very broad term. And so we continue to use this that'll allow us to capture as much of the research across the state as well. We have a network of 10 universities. The program is housed at the KU Medical Center, but we work with these institutions across the state of Kansas, and then also with Langston University in Oklahoma, where we support students in their research activities. And so this network of research intensive universities, KU Med, K-State, KU Lawrence, plus primarily undergraduate institutions, Washburn, Fort Hays State, Emporia State, Wichita State, Pittsburgh State, Langston, all of these comprise our network. And so one of the things that we do is help promote communication across the state for these research activities, to help improve technology. Many of you will be using equipment that was purchased with K-INBRE funds in your laboratories. We support faculty, and I'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. We support faculty in a lot of different ways. We support them with grants, we support them with equipment, we support recruiting new faculty to the state. So there's a lot of ways in which the faculty at your institutions can benefit from K-INBRE funding. And then we're growing new researchers, which is part of what your activities are. We're required to be involved in pipeline development. We want to continue to grow the research community, and that starts at early ages. We have activities in high school activities and others, but our main focus is at the undergraduate level, where we can really provide opportunities to all of you for research experiences, whether it's your first time or whether you're a seasoned researcher, to really get you into the laboratory and help train you. And so these are the kind of 4 pillars of what we're responsible for. We've been doing this for a long time. We continue to do that. If you're interested, we are now currently in year 3 of a 5-year funding cycle. So we'll have to go in and renew the grant in about a year and a half. We're hopeful that you're all successful and can help us in that regard. So if I were presenting to, let's say, the governor or other entities that are interested in terms of what our impact, this is kind of an example of the things that we would sort of talk about the impact of our program on the state of Kansas. And it's actually kind of nice to sort of see this information, because you realize the amount of money that is involved in here. It's not trivial. And so over the course of 20 years now, we're close to 75 million that we've received from NIH for this program. That's a huge chunk of money. And that benefits a lot of different folks. We focus a lot of our efforts on students in terms of broadening our participation. Kansas is unique because we have a lot of first-time students that are going to college, that are considered underrepresented, represented either from a rural area or from an ethnic standpoint. We significantly improve the dissemination of knowledge across the state of Kansas. We want to really provide connections for our universities. We don't want our universities to be siloed. We want them to be working together. And so that's part of what Sarah's responsible for in terms of our communication core, to provide a mechanism by which we can communicate with each other. And then to improve the technology, whether that's supporting a core at your university or helping buy equipment, or by helping renovate some of your campus. And so some of you might be involved in activities in newly renovated space across the different campuses. And so we're helpful with that as well. We average pretty close to 70 full-time employees, FTEs, that are supported throughout the year across the state. We've trained a significantly large number of students. We're approaching now 1,400 students. We'll probably reach 1,500 students within the next year. We've supported 82 postdocs, which are sort of postgraduate training opportunities, and we've helped recruit 113 faculty into the state of Kansas with our research funds. And so that, over a course of a 20-year period, starts to have significant impact in terms of the research across the state and within our universities. And when I get to see this information, I have to present this generally to folks a couple times a year. It really kind of makes you think about the impact, the long-term impact of our program on the state of Kansas. And we should be very proud, and all the folks involved in the Kansas INBRE should be very proud of those efforts. So this is how we're organized, and it's not particularly relevant to all of the students in the group, but basically I want you to understand that we are a program with 3 important cores that hopefully you'll be interacting with if possible. Sarah directs the communications core, and that core is really responsible for a lot of the efforts in terms of tracking and communicating with students. As Sarah mentioned, she'll be in contact with you for the rest of your life, and that's no lie. We really kind of need to know, how you're being successful and where you're headed, and then the things that you're doing, because that's what NIH wants to know. NIH is giving us money to support these, and they want to know what those successes are. So if you've been vaccinated, that's great for the COVID virus, because we were able to slip a chip into that vaccine, and now you have a chip in you that's not true, where there's no chip involved in the vaccine. But we do like to know where you're headed and what you're doing. And so Sarah will find you no matter where you go, or she'll find your parents and she'll track them down, and she'll be on your front porch when you get home. So just be aware of that. That's an important part of what we do. I also want to point out the Bioinformatics core. We encourage you to use the Bioinformatics core. There's folks at the K-State campus, KU Lawrence campus, as well as here. Those folks are available to help you with your bioinformatics questions and problems and research projects. And so I encourage you to reach out to those folks. And if you don't know how to contact them, Sarah's always a good entry point for that. And then I want to highlight all of the campus coordinators that we have at our various undergraduate and graduate universities. These are the folks on the with boots on the ground that are working with you through your research experiences. And again, I want to encourage you to really use these faculty. These are really seasoned, not old, but seasoned and experienced faculty that have a lot of experience and will allow you to, will help you in terms of your questions, in terms of your career development. And many of you have good relationship with those. And if you don't, I certainly encourage you to do that, because these can be tremendously valuable resources for you as you move forward. So as I mentioned, we have a lot of different ways in which we can support faculty, and I'll just kind of mention this briefly. We spend about $1.5 million per year to support our various research activities. And you can see how the faculty that you may be working for might be eligible for some of these particular awards, and many of them are. This is not particularly relevant to the students. What I'm going to spend the next part of the time on is, what are my opportunities within the Kansas INBRE that I can participate in. I just kind of want to let you know, and also remind the campus coordinators to make sure that their faculty have information related to these opportunities, as always. And again, all of these opportunities are listed on our website. We have a pretty inclusive website here for everyone to sort of look for information. Okay, so I'm presuming that almost everyone in the audience is a summer scholar or a STAR trainee of some sort. We may have some other trainees that I want to sort of talk about, but what I'd like to sort of impress upon you is that let's say you're having a great time working in the laboratory, and that's sold you, and this is what you want to do for the rest of your life. That's great. Maybe it's not the most exciting thing, and you want to look for different opportunities. And so I want to spend some time on some of the other training opportunities that we have that you might sort of consider, and is a little bit outside the more traditional wet bench experience that you're having at this particular time. So up on the right here, I've listed the student programs that we have. I would presume that most of you are probably semester or summer scholars. We may have some STAR trainees. We may have some of these others that I'm going to talk about in a minute, but I really kind of want all the students to sort of understand that there's other opportunities here if you're really not digging the wet bench experience and you're really excited about science, but maybe running a gel every day is not exciting enough for you. There are other opportunities. I do like that aspect, and I don't want to demean that at all. That's kind of why I do what I do, because I really enjoyed those experiences when I had the opportunity to train. So one of the different scholar programs that I really want to promote, really that's what I'm doing. I'm promoting these other programs because I think that we need to really get students into these programs. And that's a nudge to all the campus coordinators that I'd like to grow these other components of this as well. And one of them is a Bioinformatics Scholar. This is designed to help you guys in terms of your bioinformatics and computational biology research. Everybody at all the campuses are welcome. The relationship is much more with the bioinformatics core in terms of that, but you can be working for a mentor and really have a bioinformatics focused project, and we will support that through a different mechanism that allows your university to support you in that particular way. What I would say is that one of my jobs as leading this particular program is to sort of predict where NIH is going and where they're going to grow particular programs. And I think that everything that I'm seeing is that NIH has every indication of growing these components and probably changing the name of this or the feel of it from bioinformatics to medical informatics, or big data science is another term that we're seeing a lot. And I think this is stemming from the last couple of years associated with the pandemics. I think that what has become very important as we went through this process of understanding a particular virus, how to implement programs to deal with this virus, how to develop a vaccine, how to develop clinical trials associated with these particular vaccines. I think the big data science really came to the forefront, and I predict that NIH will really grow this aspect of our research portfolio. I really do. I hear commonly now from NIH leadership that this is an area that they really want to grow in because we were caught off guard in terms of our ability to respond to this pandemic over the last couple of years. And so I see this as becoming very important. I know that all of us in terms of basic biology really use a lot of bioinformatics and statistics in our work. And I think that the increase in growth in part that will come from NIH will be in this particular area. And so I want to encourage everyone to sort of consider this. I'd like to remind all of the campus coordinators that we have support for this, and I suspect that it's going to grow in terms of our ability to train people that involved in big data science. I think that this is really going to be an important area. And we all use bioinformatics to some degree in our research. And really kind of what I would say to myself is I think that we need to prepare and to really grow this component of our program. And I think we'll probably be doing that in the next couple of years. Another area that you have an opportunity to study is community-based research. We developed this a program about 3 or 4 years ago, and it's really underused. I think there are opportunities for us to develop this in a greater fashion. Community-based research is sort of hard to define for me because I'm not from that particular area, but its research is associated with communities in terms of understanding how communities work, how you can help improve communities, your regions within the state that may be uniquely associated with either land or water or social interactions. So it's a very broadly defined area of research. And we'd really like to encourage and grow that. And I think we've only had a couple of community-based research scholars, and we want to continue to do that. And so if you have questions about that, let us know, and we can kind of help find ways to help support this, this particular area. Another area that I see growing will be in the area of entrepreneurship and innovation. There is a huge push from NIH to encourage universities and researchers to move their ideas outside of their laboratory. And what I mean by that is, let's say I have a really great idea and we're working on a particular program that's really relevant, or a protein that's really relevant to biomedical disease. And I've come up with a new way in which that protein can either survive or be effective in that. I traditionally, the way I was trained was that I would publish that work and I would use that data to write another grant to help continue that research. But it's very important for us to consider how we might move that idea outside of the university and to develop it in a way that it might develop into a new therapeutic drug or wherever. And there are lots of resources to be able to do that. In fact, most of our universities, although it's slightly cumbersome, would encourage us to protect that information, that intellectual property, get a patent on that, and think of ways in which you then could move that idea out such that you either start your own company or you have another company that is interested in your idea and come in and purchase the rights to that idea. So that is entrepreneurship. Academia is a place in which that can happen, and there are resources that are available to help train you how to do that. Unfortunately, most of us are not trained in that particular area, and there are some unique aspects of that in which scientists probably aren't very effective in terms of selling their ideas and to presenting to venture capital about your ideas and attracting follow-on funding and to work through all the regulatory aspects of it. So there are a lot of opportunities to train in that particular area. And if you're interested in science in this particular field, if you're relatively creative and you're fearless and you want to be the CEO of a company, there are lots of opportunities to do that. So how do you start in that process? Well, one way to do it is to do an internship with a startup company or with a faculty member who's working in that particular area. And so we've developed the Entrepreneurial Scholars Program to kind of pair you up with either a small startup company or an academic laboratory at one of our institutions that's working in this particular area. This is a great place to sort of blend the business side of science with the basic research. And so you might get training in very different aspects of science that might be very new to you and maybe very business related, which you might like, or maybe regulatory, which you might like. It also is involved in sort of leadership and team building and taking risks. And so that's an area that we'd like to grow. If you're interested in those opportunities, we certainly can help you pair up, or if you know of a startup in your area that you would like to work for and they don't have any internship money, we can support you during that. So I want to encourage the growth of this particular area. We have funds within the KINBRE program and other programs that I'm involved in to help support those activities. And this is a great way to sort of think about, I don't want to call it a non-traditional career, a different career path within science that is not the traditional graduate school postdoc academic position. This is a great way to be involved in science, but also to really have a lot of the other components of this, and also potentially could be incredibly lucrative if you have ideas that are of great interest to Merck or Pfizer or somebody that comes in and pays you a lot of money for your intellectual property. It's a great way to sort of be involved in those particular activities. So I'm involved through a lot of other programs that I'm working with, and I'd be happy to talk to any of the students if they're interested in sort of working with a startup company. We have about 37 companies within the state of Kansas that I'm working with that are interested in internships at some levels. And perhaps you might be paired up with a business student from the business school, and together you work as a team to kind of work through a lot of the different barriers that exist in terms of moving these ideas forward. So I think if I have any regrets as a scientist, I wish I would have been trained in this area early on, so that many of the ideas that we had from my own research laboratory, we probably could have developed into, patented those ideas and really moved them forward. And I have no interest in being CEO of a company, but I certainly like some of the ideas that we had 20 years ago. I wish they were out on the market now and really be able to help, treat patients. And so I do wish that had happened to me in an early age. And I encourage all of you to be aware that this is a really unique career path and lots of exciting opportunities. There's lots of risk involved, but some people thrive on those risks. And there are opportunities to become a serial entrepreneur. Maybe you have 2 ideas that fail, but your third idea hits big and off you go. And you're now CEO of a big company. So I encourage all of you to sort of consider this, and I'm happy to chat with anybody if they want to kind of move in these particular areas.
Should we reach out to our PI to talk more about the business aspect and opportunities like that?
To answer that question, I would say yes, but you might find very different responses to that based on the faculty members' experiences. If they don't have a lot of experience with that, they may not view that as an exciting or appropriate path to go because there's more risk involved, or they just may not be knowledgeable about that. And so finding those faculty that are interested in that, I think is really important. So don't be discouraged if you go to your PI and you talk to them about this and are like, no, I don't want anything to do with that. Or they might be like, yes, I'd love you to participate in this. I have an idea. I'd like to, you know, to protect some of our intellectual property. So what I would say is don't be discouraged if you go and talk to them and they're like, yeah, that's not for me, or I don't want, you know, I don't know much about that, because that might be very common. And you just kind of have to kind of hunt for the right people to be able to sort of talk to. So, so yes, the answer is yes, but don't stop there with your first no. In fact, that's probably a good sign of a entrepreneur, is they never take no for an answer. They keep moving forward and looking for other approaches. That was a great question. Any other questions at this point? Okay, the final area that I want to talk about is translational research scholars. As I sort of began speaking, I would consider myself a true translational researcher, really striving to move things forward, not into a startup company at this point, but really moving it into clinical research and helping move forward. I'd like our ideas to develop into a clinical trial and to really develop new approaches to treat patients. And so there are a lot of laboratories that are like that. Translational research is kind of a sloppy term that can describe either research from basic research to clinical research, which is kind of where I fit in this particular area. But there's also translational components where you can really move that forward into improved health. You know, so if you're, you know, potentially looking at medical school, this might be a better sort of area to sort of work with. And then I really think that this is not moving in one direction. This is informative in multiple directions. In fact, some of the best ideas that we've had have come from the clinical studies, which we then took back to the basic research and really improved our ability to ask the appropriate questions that are involved in this. And so, you know, oftentimes this is involved in the medical school where a lot of this more activity, but that's not true in all cases. And so if you're interested in that, we can kind of flavor these internships and these scholarship programs to doing more translational research, and we can help you with that as well. Certainly, if you're interested in, I would say if you're interested in an MD PhD program, this is something that you would really want to consider. Can you get in a laboratory that's really kind of working and has their training opportunities in both places? I think this is really you know, a great way to kind of get cross-training in terms of what a clinical trial looks like, the reality of a clinical trial, and then the reality of basic research, and how do you get from point A to point B to help move those ideas forward. And it's not trivial to do that. You really kind of have to have training in a lot of different areas. So just personally, I've just recently written a T32 training grant for the KU Med Center, and that training grant is designed to cross-train students in both clinical and basic research so that they can move easily back and forth between these areas, and also have conversations with folks in both sides. That's often the problem, is that basic researchers don't understand all of the language that are used by the clinical research, and that provides barriers for that. So we're trying to break down those barriers. The particular T32 proposal that I wrote was based on obesity complications, but that includes a lot of different areas on purpose. And so hopefully we'll have that opportunity to support students in that particular area. So if you're interested in the Translational Research Scholars Program, reach out to us. Maybe we can help link you up with a laboratory or an entity that's doing more translational research. Okay, I just want to spend a couple of moments, because you know, a lot of the students probably here are, you know, sort of thinking about, should I go to graduate school? I mean, when I was an undergraduate, that's the question I was asking is, what do I do with the rest of my life? I didn't know much about graduate school. And I had a sort of a very narrow view of what graduate school would look like. I thought that if you went to graduate school, you were going to probably get a job, you know, as a professor. And that's absolutely not true anymore. I mean, I think that's really changed dramatically. So I just kind of want to give you some ideas in terms of what you should be thinking about in terms of graduate school, and some tips maybe on you know, where you might go. So the first question I get, or I would ask students, is why do you want an advanced degree, right? Is that really what you need? Perhaps maybe you want to go work in industry and you don't need an advanced degree with that. You need some other training sort of component. So getting a PhD, I think you have to have a very clear idea of why you want to get a PhD. I think that's where a lot of students struggle, particularly as they come into our program. They don't have clear vision about why they want to get that degree, what that degree is going to do for them. So have a better understanding of what that degree means and what you can do with that. Is that appropriate for what you want to do for a career? Maybe it is. It was for me. Although in hindsight, I didn't know it at that time, but it turned out that this is really kind of, you know, a good fit for me. And I think you need to think about these issues well before you, you know, start applying to graduate school. This is the time to really start to ask questions about, why would graduate school be relevant for me? What do I want to do with that degree? And what can I do with that degree? And I think that's what's changed a lot in my, you know, 30 plus years doing this, is I think that the career options available for PhDs has really expanded. And that's exciting. We no longer train people to replace us in academia. We are training people to go off into industry, to perhaps maybe become a professor, either in research or in teaching. You can have sort of what's called a professional postdoc. You can be a scientific researcher, but not have to write all the grants and carry all the stress and worry about all the sorts of things. And that's also an important career choice. There are a lot of government jobs that your PhD can benefit you from. There are a lot of new sort of areas opening up into editorial aspects or writing, scientific writing, other aspects. There's all sorts of new communications components associated with you know, getting your PhD. So you should really sort of take some time to sort of think about what is right for me. And of course, there, you know, once you go down that path, that's not the only path. I think there are better options of jumping back and forth between careers now than there's ever been. So if you start in industry and you're like, wow, industry really stinks, I hate it, I want to go work at a university, the possibility is there to be able to do that, much more than it used to be, I think. So these are all things that you as students should be asking your campus coordinators or your professors that you're working for. Ask them why they got their PhD. Ask them, you know, what their career aspirations were. Ask them what they did to prepare for that particular career. Those are the folks that are really, you know, and if you sit down with your professor and you ask them why you got their PhD, you'll probably get a pretty interesting conversation going about that. I think a lot of people really should have those discussions, you know, as you start to enter graduate school. It's okay to ask somebody why they got their PhD. I can tell you why I got my PhD is because I didn't know what else to do. And so I blindly went into it, and I was lucky that it fit for me. And I wish I had been better prepared, although I still would have made the same choice. I think there's a lot of great questions about getting a master's degree. Should I get a master's degree first? And the answer is yes and no. It really depends on the discipline that you're in. There are certain disciplines that really require a master's degree to really make you successful, and others that are not. So I think I think that again deserves some exploration. I would say that a lot of people have gone away from getting a master's degree, but I personally, I think the value in getting a master's degree is underrated. I think it gives you real life experience in terms of what working towards a PhD might look like. And if you get your master's degree, you'll really get an understanding. This is something I want to continue. I really love this, or I absolutely hate this. I want to go work someplace else. I think it's a good deciding point. So I would never discourage anyone from getting a master's degree. And I would say, me personally, some of the students that I've trained, the best ones have gotten a master's degree, have spent time really thinking about why they want to get a PhD, and really have the experience. And so when they get into graduate school, they really accelerate through it fast, and they do a great job. So I would never discourage anyone from getting a master's degree, but I also recognize that it's not required, and you can sometimes move into a PhD. I did not get a master's degree, and it's not because of any smart decisions on my part. It's just the way it worked out. I wish I would have had the time to sort of think about, what the benefit of that would have been. And then finally, ask your PhDs, ask your professors, what's the job outlook? I think it looks good right now. I think there'll be a huge surge in support for scientific careers. I think the last 2 years have really made it very clear that we need a lot of scientists, and there's going to be a lot of job opportunities. So I think it's actually really good. I think it's early to tell, but I think the outlook for PhDs is really, really going to be exceptional in the next couple of years, or in the next 10 years, I think. But it cycles, and I think it's important to understand that. So if you're interested in getting to grad school and you're looking at, it's not too early to sort of become educated on how to apply, reach out to the grad directors of the various programs. They are the ones that can really kind of tell you about their programs. The personal statements that you'll write are a really big component of that. Really think about that. Your letters of recommendation, you're building those connections now. There are people in the room with you now that might be a letter writer and understand what a good letter writer can do for you. And then, things that we consider as we sit on, I'm the director of a graduate program. I've been involved in graduate studies for 30 years. We look at your GPA, we look at your personal statement, we look at your letters of recommendation, we look at your research experience, which you're gaining now. And I can tell you that folks that have participated in the K-INBRE Scholars Program always get viewed fairly well. That's a very valuable research experience. I think there's less emphasis or no emphasis on the GRE scores. I think our university has gone away from using GRE requirements, so we don't require that anymore. So the other three components, plus your research experience, becomes more important, right? So really pay attention to those, and I think the people in the room with you can help you with that. They all went through that process, and we can do that as well. I want to make a plug for a great resource, which I think is underutilized by the students, and that is the entity called BioKansas. BioKansas is a nonprofit here in the state of Kansas that's designed to support scientific activities within the state, and it's been around for a long time, but they are sort of under new leadership now, and that leadership is really, really actively developing new opportunities for students to become educated in career opportunities in science. And so I kind of want to just send you to their website. They are creating lots of new educational activities designed for students at your level to understand what are the career opportunities available to me, even within the state of Kansas. So they work with Kansas companies involved in STEM activities. They're building internships. They're educating students. They are a great resource to talk about all of the things that I just talked about in terms of what you can do with your PhD, or what you can do with your master's degree, or what companies you can internship. They are really working hard to help provide opportunities to students. And I kind of want to just put a plug in for them to really, and check out their website and look for their opportunities. They're really growing rapidly in terms of the resources, particularly at the level of the students. I think that's really going to be important. Okay, so you're going to do all this great research this summer. What do you do with that research? Well, we would like you to be able to join us in Manhattan in January to present at our annual K-INBRE Symposium. That is scheduled for January 15th and 16th. And right now, as of right now, we are planning on an in-person meeting with the expectation that vaccinations will grow and our number of COVID cases will decrease and the regulations in terms of meeting will be appropriate for that. That may change depending on how we do this fall, but right now we're planning for an in-person meeting, perhaps with some hybrid options as well. We'll have to sort of see how this starts out. So this is a great opportunity for you to present your research, present a poster or an oral presentation, and we hope all of you will join us this January. So that's not the only place where you can be involved. There's a couple other opportunities that I just want to tip you off for. We have an upcoming virtual meeting this July 26th and 27th for the Central Region Idea States. That means North Dakota, South Dakota, Nebraska, Kansas, and Oklahoma are all getting together for a regional meeting. All the KINBRE and KOBRE programs. It's a great opportunity. The meeting is virtual. I don't think there's a registration fee, so there'll be lots of great scientific talks, excluding mine. I'm speaking, and so you don't have to jump in on that. But it is a great opportunity to see what's happening. It's also a great opportunity maybe to sort of see what other graduate programs are available in these other states, to sort of see that. I have every expectation that part of the IDEA program will be funding a student to travel to Washington, D.C. to meet with Kansas representatives and senators to talk about the science in Kansas. And if you're interested in those kinds of activities, you know, you might want to send me an email and say, hey, I'd really like to be considered. We'll probably send one student from Kansas, and you'll be meeting with Senators Marshall and Moran and our representatives to talk about the research. This is a great opportunity to sort of be involved in that side of science. It's kind of a unique aspect, and you get to see kind of how operations are handled at the level of the federal government, and how important that is for us to speak on behalf of the science that's happening. So that's going to happen probably in February or March, and we'll go to Washington, D.C. So let me know if you're interested. And
How do we access your email for that? Do we have?
Yeah, I can. Sarah can provide that email, but it's super easy. It's dwight@kumc.edu, and we can probably pull it up on the screen at the end. Finally, there'll be a national meeting next summer for all of the IDEA programs. It'll be in Washington, D.C. Just for the campus coordinators. The meeting was going to be held at the Wardman Park Marriott in Washington, D.C., and then the Marriott has gone out of business. They went out of business about a month ago, so we don't know where that national meeting is going to be held right now. And fortunately, we are not involved in that decision. So we'll let you know where that is. It'll be in DC somewhere, but it's another consequence of the pandemic. All right, so this is my last slide. I just kind of want to give you some advice in terms of how do you get the most out of your experience. I went and looked today. I have my 72nd student starting in my lab on Monday in terms of rotation, internships, whatever you want to call them. I've had a lot of students come in my laboratory, and you can kind of get a general sense of those that really benefit from that opportunity and those that don't. And these are my takeaways for your summer experience. Ask a ton of questions. This is your opportunity to learn as much as you can about everything associated with science, whether it's career development, whether it's talking about buffers, whether it's how to do a t-test. The only way you're going to learn this is to ask a lot of questions. Don't be afraid to ask questions. I know that students in my laboratory that have been really successful have just pestered us to death with questions, because that's a great way to learn. If you're sitting quietly and not engaging, you're not going to learn, and you're not going to walk away with a good experience. So don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid to sit down with your professor and ask them questions about why you got your PhD. Why are we doing this project? What's our hypothesis? What happens if we fail? All of those sorts of things are fair game. And people who are successful in this business are not afraid to ask questions. Interact with your other lab mates. Build a community, right? If you guys are going out for I don't know if you can go out for drinks at this particular point, but If there are social interactions, hang out with your lab mates, get to know them. Those might be the people that you start your startup company with. You have no idea. So build those relationships. Don't be afraid to help other people. If you've got your own project in the lab, a great way to learn more about what's happening is to collaborate with others. And students that I see not thriving are really just not, they're too afraid to jump in and help other people and to collaborate and to really kind of learn a lot more other than just their project. I think it's important that we are aware that people in the laboratory that we're working with come from very diverse backgrounds and experiences. And I think that this is an important component, that somebody might not come from the same environment that you came from and have the same training that you came from. And you need to be aware of that and be sensitive to that. I think that's an important thing that makes for a better laboratory environment, is that we're aware that everybody's experiences are different, and we need to be aware of that all the time. Think about looking forward and ask others what their plans are and what they're doing to prepare. Ask the graduate students, where they're going next and how they're preparing. Ask if it's a postdoc in the lab, ask them what they're doing to prepare to go on. I think this is really a great place to gather information about looking forward to the next step. What do I need to be doing to move to the next step? Because you need to always be preparing for that now. Be ready to train others. There might be new people that come into the laboratory, and training people is a great way to become very educated and very quickly. So teaching other people is an important part about being a scientist. And then I really want you to celebrate your successes. Science is hard. We have lots of failures. Probably 90% of the hypotheses I put forward, I'm wrong. So when we do have successes, it's important to celebrate those, whether it's a gel that ran correctly, whether it's you got your first paper submitted, you got a fellowship, you got your first grant. Absolutely need to celebrate those successes. They don't always come often, and so when they do, I think it's very important to maintain that positive outlook and to celebrate those. So, and as we sort of get through the pandemic, I'm looking forward to having a beer with my lab in the future, because we've got lots of celebrations to do that we sort of missed out on, and we're gonna make sure that we catch up on that. So it's an important component of that. So that's all I have. I just kind of want to sort of talk to you about a lot of different topics that are kind of, I think, relevant to your summer experience. I'm happy to sort of answer any questions from the students or the faculty at this point in terms of anything that I've talked about. So thanks. Any questions, comments, criticisms? I can take criticism, don't worry. I've absolutely killed the conversation.
I have a question about back on the beginning of the slides under, I think it was a hierarchy diagram. You had mentioned to use the bioinformatics as a resource. What does that look like us emailing them?
Yeah,
or...
I think that's fair game. So talk with your professor, and it's absolutely appropriate to email Sue Brown, Stuart McDonald, or Devin Kessler with questions that you might have. They might develop, have ideas or help you or point you in the right direction. So work with your professor first, probably. Work with your campus coordinator, but fair game, yeah, just email them, cold email. Nothing better than to have the courage to send a cold email to somebody.
Yeah, Ingrid, you're here at K-Med, so it would probably be Devin Kessler in your case.
Okay.
And I can broker that if you want me to.
John's a good connector. So just a quick question for the campus coordinators. What are the regulations on your campus in terms of activities in the lab? Have most of the regulations dropped now, and you're able to get back in the lab at normal levels, but perhaps masked?
We're completely open and at Torrey State. It's exactly like it was 2 summers ago.
Yeah. Okay. So it looks like some of them are back to normal as well. It's great. It's good to see.
Well, if anybody doesn't have any more questions, I don't know that that statement just made sense. I have a couple of housekeeping things. First of all, I am putting a link right now into the text box or the chat box. This is for new students that are new this summer. If you have not participated in KINBRE before and you are brand new, please go to this link and fill out this survey. If you have participated in any capacity before, please don't fill it out. And if you have any questions, please let me know. Dr. Wright also just put his email address into the chat box, so you can just ask him if you have any questions instead of me. Remember that for those of you that don't know, we do have a website. We also have social media. So we have Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. We also have a YouTube channel, which we put all of these seminars on so they can be viewed later. So if you miss any, you can go back and watch them. And we hope to see a lot more of you guys. And oh, there was one more thing I was going to say and now I just forgot. So I guess it wasn't important. So if anybody, thank you for participating. If anybody has any questions about anything, you're welcome to contact me or your campus coordinator.
I'd like to see a TikTok from Emporia State with Dr. Burnett in it. Can you guys do that? Can you put together something?
Wasn't he in the one we made at a few years ago? Weren't you in that, Tim?
Yeah, I may organize that. You're just not looking hard enough, Dr. Wright. You just gotta find them.
That's it. I'm starting a TikTok now. So now we're gonna have a KINBRE TikTok. So be prepared for a KINBRE TikTok. And if you guys have any successes, like Dr. Wright said, please let me know. We love to post those things on social media. We love to hear about any awards that you win, any publications that you have, any breakthroughs in your research, all of that. We'd love to hear that. So please let us know. And you'll all probably be hearing from me again. So thank you for participating. Oh, and the next seminar is on July 8th. From 12:30 to 1:30. So please be prepared to participate in that. It'll be the same link, but we'll also send out a reminder.
Have fun this summer.
See y'all later.